To me, a good day is when I can Google something I wrote and it didn't show up somewhere else first. Like, it's a very basic, sort of simplistic and definitely not original thought. But we lose sight of that sometimes when we're all chasing the hottest tweet, chasing the latest story.
So we're putting together this list, the Next Wave 2016 in media, looking at the people that are reshaping media. They're doing really interesting things here. As you look at this list, what stands out to you? Are there any trends here, anything noteworthy worth calling out?
What I see is that every person who either is a journalist or is working inside a journalism company is also a technologist and is also working inside a technology company. What we see is not just the lines blurring, but that the lines have completely blurred. Whether that's the New York Times having virtual reality staffers, whether it's a legal department at BuzzFeed, whether it's Reddit having a head of journalism. I mean, what does that mean? Reddit having a head of journalism. I've got to read and find out what Mark says about that. It shows that all of these websites that I might think of as tech plays, or all these journalism outfits that I might think of as just old-fashioned journalism, are tech companies and vice versa. That the blurring is basically complete.
That's a great point. Even inside news organizations, someone on the list is doing news automation at Bloomberg. It's like these roles just keep morphing, keep coming closer and closer together.
And if you're a young journalist, you need to be a young technologist, or at least be able to speak the language of something like news automation or something like virtual reality. If you're a young engineer, a young designer, you're going to want to be able to speak some of the journalist language in order to understand what those storytellers, what those reporters are thinking about in the newsroom. The different languages and how we can bring some of those translations to each other is what comes through to me when I think about what the Next Wave represents.
So when you think about your own career and your path to this point, how will that be different for this group? And what are some of the challenges that they're going to face that maybe you didn't?
It's getting even harder to reach eyeballs, to get the attention of an audience versus, say, 10 years ago. On the flip side, there are still so many websites still to be made, so many apps still to be invented, so many ideas still to be executed upon. I say that because I literally have ideas for websites that I wish existed that still don't. I think there's still a lot to be done in terms of original concepts, original ways to reach readers, original ways to get their attention. And because of the proliferation of the web and of cell phones and of mobile devices, there is a bigger than ever audience out there that you can try to reach. The opportunities are enormous. The opportunities are so much greater than they were 10 years ago and definitely 20 years ago. When I was starting my blog, this was in the mid-2000s, you still had to explain what blogs were. And there were no iPhones for people to read them on mobile devices. The growth curve, the acceleration of technology is something that benefits all of us who work in media. And even though to me it feels like there's so much more competition, so many more tweets and apps and screens competing for my time, there's still a lot of potential, more and more potential, more and more opportunities to execute on those original ideas and original concepts. I think about sites like Blavity. I think about companies like Reddit that I didn't associate as journalism platforms that are now seeking to be. And I think about how there are so many opportunities to stand out from what is a admittedly very crowded pack. The word media is so many things now. Media can mean Donald Trump's tweets, it can mean Hillary Clinton's podcast, it can mean a New York Times investigation, or it can mean a CNN blog post, or it can mean a BuzzFeed list. And I don't mean to use any cliches, every media company is trying to be everything right now. There's sort of an all-of-the-above strategy that we're seeing from a lot of companies. And within that, it does mean a lot of regurgitation, a lot of aggregation, a lot of just rehashing the hot take of the moment or rewriting of a press release. And I'm guilty of it as much as anybody. I know I spend too much of my time rewriting other people's stories, trying to put a little spin on it, but essentially just following up on someone else's work. I think the higher value part of our world, and what we can try to all do more of, is to add value and add new information that hasn't already appeared somewhere on the World Wide Web. No doubt when something breaks, there's a good reason why 40 people chase it and rewrite it. But the more exciting part of the job is to have the one that everyone else is chasing. to be the one that's chased, to be the one that's introducing new information into the world. And I just think that's been lost a little bit. Even though I'm guilty of it, it's been lost a little bit. We're in this age today where everybody is a media critic, and for good reasons, because there's lots to criticize. But what we're seeing less of is less reporting about why things are the way they are. Why is it that these websites are kind of rolling down a funnel toward this lowest common denominator of journalism? I think the value add I can hopefully bring is reporting.